If everyone is going to profit from Caitlin Clark coming to their state, it might as well be me too. Remember when people swore up and down that nobody wanted to play with Caitlin Clark? Well, Lexi Brown just shattered that narrative into pieces. The Seattle Storm guard, who once had doubts about Clark, has now become one of her biggest defenders in the WNBA. So, what changed? Well, Lexi Brown actually played against Caitlin Clark. And after just one game, she realized that the hype wasn't just media-driven, it was real. This is the same Lexi Brown who, before Clark entered the WNBA, was part of the crowd questioning whether she was truly as great as advertised. She wasn't shy about her skepticism either. She openly wondered whether Clark's hype was manufactured by the media or if she was the real deal, and that's fine. Skepticism is normal in professional sports. Plenty of veterans are wary of college stars until they prove themselves at the next level. But here's what makes Brown's story so unique. Her opinion didn't change gradually. It wasn't a slow process over a season or even a few games. Her perspective flipped after just one game. After facing Caitlin Clark on the court, Lexi Brown had one reaction. "Oh damn, she's legit. That's it. That's all it took." Brown didn't sugarcoat it. She didn't play the PR game. She simply saw Caitlin Clark's talent firsthand and immediately acknowledged that she had been wrong. And here's the thing, not every WNBA veteran is willing to do that. Many have doubled down on their skepticism, refusing to admit they misjudged Clark's abilities. But Lexi Brown had the integrity to publicly admit she was wrong. That kind of honesty is rare in professional sports. Instead of pushing a false narrative, she made it clear, Clark is the real deal. And after that game, Brown became one of Clark's most vocal supporters. While Brown was giving Clark her flowers, WNBA legend Cheryl Swoopes was out here spreading one of the wildest takes in recent memory. Nobody wants to play with Caitlin Clark. Now let's break this down. A Hall of Famer, someone with a massive platform, was actively pushing the idea that free agents would avoid Indiana because of Clark. The same Clark who is one of the most explosive passers and scorers the league has ever seen. Make it make sense. Meanwhile, actual players on the Indiana Fever were saying the exact opposite. Free agents weren't avoiding Indiana. They were lining up to play there. And this is where Lexi Brown didn't just defend Caitlin Clark. She completely dismantled this false narrative. Lexi Brown and Cheryl Swoopes are both on the same podcast network, Gil's Arena. And Brown wasn't afraid to call out the nonsense. Brown pointed out the obvious. Why wouldn't players want to play with someone like Clark? She's a generational talent, a game changer, and a player who makes everyone around her better. She also called out the people pushing this nonsense, saying that many of them couldn't even be the manager for the JV basketball team. The reality is, Clark has completely transformed the Indiana Fever. Before she arrived, Indiana was basically a basketball ghost town. Games were empty, free agents weren't interested, and the team had little excitement around it. Now, Indiana Fever tickets are the hottest in the league. Free agents want to be there. The team is building something special. And the idea that nobody wants to play with Caitlin Clark? Lexi Brown just proved that was a lie. The WNBA has seen a shift. Players who once doubted Clark are now realizing what she brings to the table. Some won't admit they were wrong, but Lexi Brown did. She played against Clark. She saw what she could do, and she had no problem saying, yeah, she's legit. That's the kind of honesty the league needs. So let's stop pushing false narratives. Let's stop pretending Clark isn't changing the game. And let's start listening to the players who are actually on the court with her. Lexi Brown and Cheryl Swoopes are both part of Gil's Arena podcast network, which makes what happened even more interesting. When Cheryl Swoopes made her claim that nobody wants to play with Caitlin Clark, she wasn't just throwing out a casual opinion. She was pushing a narrative that spread like wildfire. Now, think about this for a second. Cheryl Swoopes is one of the most respected figures in women's basketball history. She's a 3-time WNBA MVP, a 4-time champion, an Olympic gold medalist, and a Hall of Famer. When someone with that level of credibility speaks, people listen. And yet, her claim made absolutely no sense. Why? Because the players on the Indiana Fever were literally saying the opposite. While Swoopes was saying free agents would avoid Indiana, the actual players on the team were saying things like, I want to be here. We're building something special. Caitlin's bigger than just one debate. This is about accountability. The WNBA is growing. The league is finally getting more attention, more media coverage, and more fans than ever before. But with that growth comes responsibility. Former players like Swoopes need to be careful with the narratives they push. They have massive platforms, and when they spread false information, it affects how players are perceived, how fans view the league, how free agents make their decisions. Lexi Brown stepping up and correcting the record in real time was huge. She didn't just challenge a bad take, she completely flipped the script. Instead of nobody wants to play with Caitlin Clark, the conversation is now about how Clark is making Indiana a free agent destination. Instead of questioning whether Clark can fit in with veterans, we're seeing 0 veterans openly changing their minds after playing against her. Lexi Brown wasn't just right, she proved that the truth will always come out. And as the WNBA continues to grow, more players need to do what she did. Hold each other accountable, call out the nonsense, and make sure that the real story is being told. Because if we're being honest, the WNBA needs more Lexi Browns.